Good evening, and thank you so much for logging on to our Strata Committee training webinar this evening. Thank you for your support in this initiative. Obviously, throughout the webinar, feel free to use the Q&A function. And just a reminder, this session is being recorded. You will receive a copy of the recording following the webinar. Feel free to share it with anyone on the committee or any other owners within your Strata scheme that you feel would like to have a watch and a listen. Just to introduce myself, my name is Andrew Chunks. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Strata. Been doing these webinars for several years now. Feel free to, as I said, use the Q&A. Ask me any questions. I'll endeavour to get through as many questions as I can this evening. Little disclaimer, this webinar is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal advice. If you need legal advice, obviously reach out to your Strata manager and we can point you in the right direction. Training is a big part of what we do here at Strata. Our Strata managers undergo quite a lot of training within our business, as well as external CPD and so forth. So some of the things that we do here at Strata, obviously our Strata managers are run through their fortnightly Strata management meetings. We also conduct Strata basics courses and whatnot, various legal training and industry forums and so forth. And we have a series of different training manuals and books that our Strata managers use on a daily basis, which is good. We are hopefully the leaders in the industry, or certainly try to be, in terms of training our staff and making sure they know what they're doing and can serve you as best as possible. And that leads us to this initiative. So we thought we have a massive focus on training within our organisation. Let's try and train Strata committees. And we have been doing that this is our 4th year of running Strata committee training webinars. If you do miss out on any webinars, the email link that you get sent following the webinar with the recordings has a little link to all the other training sessions that we've run over the years. But if you have missed that email, we also save them on our learning portal. So feel free to jump on to learning.netstrata.com.au and there's a series of webinars in our training resources there. So general owner webinars and Strata committee webinars and whatnot. If you don't know who we are, we've been established in 1996, Strata Wollongong since 2011, and we've won many large Strata Management Business of the Year. Our primary focus is obviously Strata Management, and tonight what we want to do is walk you through a very important aspect of Strata, which is renovations within Strata schemes. So this session hopefully is a practical session for committee members tackling the challenges of renovations within their Strata scheme. So what we're going to cover off tonight is understanding renovation approvals. So we'll talk a bit about the 3 types of renovations. So there's cosmetic work, minor renovations, also major works. We'll then have a bit of an explore into bylaws, so renovation and works bylaws, what they can provide for and what they should be used for. And then finally, we'll cover off other renovation and works considerations, both within lot property and common property. So before I get started, I'll just briefly explain what you own as a lot owner versus what is considered common property. So if you have a look at the image on the screen here, you'll see sort of a cutout cross section of an apartment there, and you've got basically lot property detailed in the dark blue with white lettering, and then the goldy sort of bronze color common property. So within your apartment, there is a lot that you own, I guess, as a lot owner. So we call it cubic airspace. So basically the boundary of your apartment is common property. Then all the internal walls are considered to be lot property. So you've got things like your internal walls, your carpet, your kitchen cupboards and appliances, your curtains and blinds, all those sorts of things. And then the common property elements are things like, as I said, the boundary walls, basically the gyprock ceiling and above. So the roof is common property, the boundary walls are common property, and the services, if they're in a common property wall, are obviously common property. So the owner's corporation's responsibility to repair and maintain. So this is important, obviously, when we're thinking of renovations, we're thinking of all the sorts of things within your lot that you could do without approval, which is, we'll get to that in a moment, but that's namely the cosmetic renovations. Then there's minor renovations, which are things that entail, changes of flooring or kitchen renovations and those sorts of things. And then there is major renovations, which is generally where you're affecting common property, basically. And we'll talk a little further this evening about the sorts of bylaws and considerations that you need to make in that regard. All right, so understanding renovation approvals. So cosmetic, minor and major works. So what approvals are needed? And there's different levels depending on the category. So renovation work generally falls into the three categories. Sorry. So the first one, cosmetic works, minor renovations, and then major works. So what are they? Let's start off with cosmetic work. So defined in Section 109 of the Strata Schemes Management Act, usually they're simple internal works. So as my little images painting a wall on the right-hand side there, that is one example, painting the internals of your unit, for example, or hanging a picture hook or those sorts of things. And generally speaking, no owner's corporation approval is required because it's to lot property, it's within inside the lot, it's not affecting anybody else, you can't see it from the outside of the building. Examples may include things like minor surface level changes, and I've got a few more examples to pop up on the screen there. So things like installing or replacing hooks, nails or screws for hanging paintings and other things on the walls, installing or replacing internal handrails. So you might have for example, a two-story townhouse and you're replacing the handrail to get from level 1 to level 2. That would be considered a cosmetic work and is up to the lot owner to do, obviously at no cost to the owner's corporation because it's not considered to be common property. Internal painting, filling minor holes and cracks in internal walls. So over time, you might want to refresh your apartment. Obviously, you can do that without the approval of the owner's corporation if you're just, filling up a couple of cracks, repainting the walls and so forth. Laying carpet, installing or replacing built-in wardrobes. So again, they're internal. They're not common property, so therefore you can go ahead and do that. Installing or replacing internal blinds and curtains. There is a little tip here though. Check bylaws for the rules around the design and the colours. So sometimes, and particularly new developments, have a specific window covering bylaw. So it might say that you can only have a certain type of blind or curtain in a certain colour. So it might say, Holland blinds in white or off-white colour. So therefore, you can't go ahead and put timber Venetians in there, for example, because it might not be in keeping with the appearance of the building. So, a little caveat around internal blinds and curtains. So cosmetic work, an owner of a lot, now this is straight out of the Strata legislation, it says these words. An owner of a lot must ensure that A, any damage caused to any part of the common property by the carrying out of cosmetic work by or on behalf of the owner is repaired, and the cosmetic work and any repairs are carried out in a competent and proper manner. So using obviously competent tradespeople that don't, damage any part of the common property. Moving on to minor renovations. So we've talked about cosmetic. We'll move on to minor. So minor is defined in Section 110 of the Strata Schemes Management Act and requires approval by ordinary resolution at a general meeting. However, in some cases, the Strata Committee may approve minor renovations if that power has been delegated to the committee by way of a bylaw. So it's common in Strata that there is minor renovation bylaws empowering the Strata Committee to sign off on those minor renovations to basically save the cost and the time involved in calling a general meeting with all owners to approve, for example, a change of floating timber floors, for example, or a kitchen renovation that doesn't affect common property. So maybe someone's putting a new island bench in, doesn't touch common property, and they just need the sign off of the owners corporation. Far easier and more streamlined if a Strata Committee can approve that rather than having to call a general meeting, 7 days notice, meeting notices issued to all owners and having them sign off on something so minor like that. And we'll have a look at some of those example bylaws in a few slides' time. All right, minor renovations include but are not limited to the following items. So something like renovating a kitchen, changing recessed light fittings. So they are like, downlights in your ceiling and so forth. Installing or replacing wood or other hard floors. Installing or replacing wiring or cabling or power or access points. Work involving reconfiguring walls. So you might have non-load bearing walls, for example. So let's say you've got a two-bedroom apartment and you want to move the wall between the two bedrooms to make one room bigger than the other. If it's not load bearing and it's just simply an internal wall, it would constitute a minor renovation. Obviously, approval would have to be sought, but yeah, you could do that under the minor renovations banner. Removing carpet or other soft floor coverings to expose underlying wooden or other hard floors. Now, these next couple of examples are probably more suitable to like a villa or a townhouse scheme. Installing a rainwater tank. So obviously in apartments, it's a bit hard to do that. On your balcony, put a big rainwater tank. It would be more so for the likes, as I say, like a townhouse or something, as would installing a clothesline in a yard or those sorts of things. Installing a reverse cycle split system air conditioner, installing double or triple glazed windows, installing a heat pump, installing ceiling insulation. So that's probably more so for top floor apartments or villas or townhouses. But they're just some examples of minor renovations. Now, the requirements: owners must give the Owners Corporation written notice before seeking approval for minor renovations. So including the details of the work, the plans, the timing, the contractor's qualifications, and rubbish or debris management. So owners are responsible for ensuring any common property damage is repaired and that the renovation and repairs are completed properly and competently. Further requirements: the scheme's bylaws may expand what counts as a minor renovation. So in some cases, we see bylaws that actually detail the types of items that the scheme considers to be a minor renovation. So examples like what I just listed a few slides earlier, and may allow the Owners Corporation to delegate approval decisions to the Strata Committee. Now, this is a new rule. If delegated to the Strata Committee, the committee must give written reasons for any refusal within 3 months. If it does not, approval is taken to have been given. So let me give you an example. Let's say that an owner within your strata scheme wanted to replace the carpet and put down floating timber floors with a sound deadening underlay. And let's say that application was emailed to the committee and they didn't respond. 3 months passes. Basically, approval is given because the committee have not responded within that time frame. Again, this is a relatively new rule. And moving over to the next slide, the next relatively new rule is that the Owners Corporation must keep the records of approved minor renovations for 10 years. Now, where you obviously have a professional strata management agency like us here at NetStrata, we would keep those documents on the records of the Owners Corporations in our document management system, generally forever, but the statute of limitation there is 10 years. So minor renovation provisions do not apply to cosmetic work, structural changes, external appearance changes, waterproofing, work needing other statutory approval, or work authorised by a bylaw or other excluded works under the regulation. Now, one of the most common types of minor renovations, that we see here in Strataland is floating timber floor replacement. So I'll just sort of run you through generally what we look at here. So ordinarily, we ask applicants to fill in an application form detailing all the products that they wish to use. Now, for floating timber floors, as you can appreciate, what we're trying to ensure is that noise isn't transmitted from the unit putting down the timber floors into the unit below or adjacent. Now, that can obviously be an issue. If that happens, you might start to get noise complaints from other people hearing footsteps and those sorts of things. So something that we look for is obviously the underlay certificate and acoustics reports and those sorts of things. So generally what we ask for is the proposed flooring material. So what are they putting down? Is it timber, tiles? Sometimes the hybrid timber floor basically has their own flooring and acoustic specifications. So we generally ask for all the criteria around that. We then ask for the location of the new flooring. So is it just in the existing living areas, or are they pulling up other floors in the kitchen, for example, to run the timber floor and underlay throughout the entire apartment? So just to be a bit more specific as to the areas that's going to be affected. And the checklist of items on the right-hand side there. So we look for the underlay certificate and we aim to have a 5-star rating on the underlay, obviously to prevent noise transmission from one apartment to another. Flooring and underlay specifications are very important, and council requirements have been met by the owner. So we, in some certain areas, or some councils. These applications need to be run past the council. In most cases, they probably don't, but we just check anyway. And also, please note that 5-star rating, what that means is a 5-star rating of the Association of Australian Acoustic Consultants or such other standards as amends or enhances that rating from time to time. So, and there's a airborne sound insulation ratio that we look for. So we look for numbers lower than those on the screen there. So obviously, the lower number, the better. The higher number means yeah, possible transmission of noise. Yeah, it's obviously more likely to an adjoining apartment. So if you look at the image on the screen, you've got the floating timber floor there, you've got the acoustic underlay, and that obviously sits between the timber floor and the concrete slab below it. All right, moving on to major works. So major works here are defined in section 108 and 143 of the Strata Schemes Management Act. And major works are those works which do not compromise or are excluded from being cosmetic works or minor renovations. So they require approval by special resolution at a general meeting and usually also require a renovation bylaw. So this often applies where the work affects common property in a more significant way or where ongoing maintenance responsibility needs to be addressed. So looking here, some works may also need external approval. So depending on the works being proposed, sometimes a development consent or DA, development application needs to be sought. Sometimes a complying development certificate, community association approval. So what that means is basically where you're in a tiered sort of complex there, where you might have a strata scheme within a community association. There may be additional approvals that you need there. Consent from the original architect sometimes, and building management committee approval. So some strata schemes have multi-tier developments called building management committees, where you might have 2 strata schemes and a shopping centre under it. For example, there might be additional rules within that building management statement that requires a meeting or certain approvals taking place. All right, so major works examples. So basically, structural walls can be an example of a major renovation. So sometimes from time to time, you might see people want to do a kitchen renovation. Some of the older style, 70s and 80s style apartments, which have like galley kitchens, they might want to knock out a wall and make it a bit more of an open plan sort of living area. And if that involves knocking out a structural wall or where there might be a structural column, generally speaking, what we ask for is an engineer to inspect and give advice on how that structural wall can obviously continue to hold up the level or the roof above it by way of a beam or a column or those sorts of things. So an example of a structural wall, as you can see on the picture here, a structural wall on the left-hand side there is obviously holding up the roof. The one on the right-hand side, is not holding up anything, so therefore potentially is not a structural wall. All right, moving on, additional major works examples. So reconfiguring internal walls where the work affects common property. So a moment ago, I talked about internal walls which do not affect common property or are not structural. So those walls are fine. They're considered a minor renovation. But the moment that you have a wall that has some sort of structural component, or might be structural cubic space, or it might be a column or something that is either holding up common property, or it might be passing water pipes or electrical cabling or gas lines or whatnot from one level to another. Obviously, we leave those alone, or obviously we get the appropriate consultants to give us advice around that. So reconfiguring internal walls where the work affects common property, structure, fire safety services, or waterproofing. Another example, my pretty pictures on the right-hand side there at the top, bathroom renovations, including waterproofing, floor waste, membrane works, plumbing relocation, or penetrations through common property. So these are larger scale bathroom renovations. So if somebody's just replacing a vanity, freestanding vanity, disconnecting the pipes, replacing the vanity and reconnecting the pipes, that would ordinarily be a minor renovation. But the one I'm referring to here is where somebody wants to go into an apartment, obviously pull up the tiles, pull up the waterproofing. Maybe they're moving, walls or whatnot, or maybe even windows. Those sorts of things would be considered to be a major work and therefore would require a renovation bylaw be in place. Laundry renovations, so again, including waterproofing, plumbing changes, or exhaust systems or drainage changes. And the last one there, kitchen renovations, where the plumbing, exhaust ducting, gas, waterproofing, structural elements, or common property services are affected. So if they're not affected, so if just removing a cupboard, replacing it with a cupboard, generally that's okay. It's under a minor renovation category. But if we're removing sections of wall which might have implications on the common property plumbing or the way in which the exhaust is ducted, then that might fall under the major works category. Other examples here, so installing or relocating or modifying air conditioning systems where the condenser, pipework, drainage, or penetrations affect common property, the facade, roof, balcony, or external walls. So from time to time, we get renovation applications from individual lot owners who are wanting to put in split system air conditioning. So they might put the condenser, which is the motor you can see on the screen there, on common property. So that might be outside of their apartment or maybe on the balcony, for example. And now the balcony airspace would be considered lot owner's property. However, the cabling and ducting would ordinarily go through the external wall, so the common wall, into the apartment, and therefore it would fall under the major works category. Installing skylights, roof windows, roof penetrations, solar panels, or other works affecting the roof or external building envelope. So obviously only applicable top floor apartments or villas or townhouse schemes where they're looking to get a little bit of extra light, for example, with the skylights. Again, that would be a major renovation, or they're looking to put solar panels on the roof and obviously lower their energy bill. A little bit more to say about that once we get to bylaws. Next example here is enclosing, extending, or substantially altering a balcony, a courtyard, a terrace, or exclusive use area. So there's a few reasons for this. Number one, I guess, is obviously the way in which the enclosure would look from the outside of the building, so affecting the outward appearance of the building. So that's, I guess, one reason why it would fall under being a major work. The other one is potentially it might be removing hand railing and installing glass partitions or those sorts of things like you can see on the screen. So again, that would fall under that major works style of work. Major work example here, installing external awnings, pergolas, privacy screens, shutters, louvers or balustrade changes that alter the external appearance of the lot or common property. So from time to time, I'd say probably the most common one we get, or two that we get in Strata is like the image on the left-hand side with the pergola or vagola. Some of them open up to allow air and sunlight, have either a manual or automatic mechanism to close it back up, obviously to keep it watertight. The other common example is on the right-hand side, you can see a balcony with a black basically privacy screen. So sometimes your balcony might look onto a neighbouring building and you think, hey, wouldn't it be great to have a bit of privacy? I might put up a louver. Again, that would be a major work because obviously it's affecting the outward appearance of the building and it's on the boundary of the lot. So there's two reasons. Next one here is works affecting fire safety systems, including fire doors, sprinklers, smoke seals, fire-rated walls, alarms, hydrants, or essential services. So if someone's doing a renovation to their apartment and they're affecting these sorts of things, so for example, if they need to move the sprinkler system because they're altering an internal wall, again, that would be a case of a major work. Next one here is just a bit of a summary. So major renovations are the bigger ticket works, not just in dollars, but in risk. So think structure, waterproofing, external appearance, fire safety, common property services, exclusive use areas, or anything that needs a bylaw to shift ongoing maintenance back to the owner. And I thought it might be helpful just to talk you through what the steps are for major renovations. So first and foremost, we would obtain an application form from the individual lot owner who is wanting to carry out the major renovation work. We would then guide and direct them. Obviously, as I've said a couple of times in this presentation already, a special resolution would be required. So approval is required by special resolution at a general meeting. So that is a vote by way of unit of entitlement greater than 75% in favour of the motion to pass it. Then we look at a renovation bylaw. So a renovation bylaw will be usually required, especially where the lot owner is responsible for ongoing maintenance of the affected common property. So basically, the bylaw, as point three there, should clearly describe the works, the affected common property, conditions for carrying out the works, ongoing repair and maintenance and replacement obligations. I have to be clear here, if the bylaw is not detailing that the lot owner needs to repair and maintain that item ongoing, unfortunately, that does come back to the owner's corporation in terms of an obligation to repair and maintain. So super important that the bylaws are well drafted, are clear, and I'll give you an example of a bathroom renovation. If they're going to be ripping up the waterproofing, generally we would require waterproofing certification and tradespeople, the details of the tradespeople, so the licenses, insurance, etc. And we would place the maintenance responsibility on the lot owner for future repair and maintenance. Obviously, if they've renovated their bathroom, they should be responsible ongoing for the quality and obviously the maintenance of that renovation. Also, the bylaw should clearly describe the insurance, the indemnity, and access requirements. Then step four, the lot owner's written consent. So the lot owner's written consent is required if the bylaw transfers maintenance obligations or grants special rights over common property. So I'll give you an example again of a bathroom renovation. So ordinarily, the waterproofing in the shower would be the owner's corporation's repair and maintenance responsibility. Now, let's say in a case of, say, a 20 or 30-year-old apartment building, a lot owner buys into the building and wants to renovate the bathroom, wants to rip out the tiles and the waterproofing, make it nice and modern, replace the waterproofing and tiles, and we get all their certification, etc. Generally, what is required at law to pass that ongoing maintenance responsibility for the waterproofing onto the lot owner, they need to fill out a consent form. So basically, they need to consent to taking on that obligation. Ordinarily, this should be done at the same time the bylaw is made at a general meeting, so it's nice and clear who is responsible for maintaining that waterproofing moving forward. So the next step is once the bylaw is passed and the lot owner has consented to taking on the additional maintenance responsibility, the bylaw must be registered with New South Wales Land Registry Services before it has effect. Now, point six, do not commence works until the required approval and bylaw registration are complete. So we have a window of 6 months here in New South Wales to register that bylaw. Generally, we're working around the 2 to 3 month mark is probably, ordinary practice. But just bear in mind that that work shouldn't commence until the bylaw is registered. Now, other approvals may also be needed, and I'll talk about that in a few slides' time, such as council approval, a complying development certificate, building management committee approval or architect consent, or approvals under other legislation. Now, point eight here are good practice rules. So if the work affects structure or waterproofing, fire safety, external appearances, services, or exclusive use of common property, treat it as major unless properly advised otherwise. The other point down here in yellow or gold, engineering or consultant sign-off may be required for structural changes. So it makes sense if somebody's wanting to move a wall internally in their unit, the owner's corporation or the Strata committee might think it's reasonable to get an engineer at the cost of the person doing the renovations to sign off that the changes will not affect the structural integrity of the building. So that makes sense. Now, just to walk you through here as well, examples of major renovations that may require a DA or council consent. So some major works may need these development approvals or council consents, and there's some images on the screen there, and I'll walk you through them. So structural alterations is one of them, so removing or altering load-bearing walls, beams, or columns. Certainly external wall changes, so if you're changing the outward appearance of the building or the footprint of the building, so maybe you're in a villa complex and you want to push a wall out into, the yard or something like that. So you would need the ordinary strata approval. You may also need a DA with council. Balcony or external additions. So you might have, a balcony that you want to enclose or rebuild or extend. Again, you may need council consent there. So point three and point four. Point five, a change of use. So changing the use of a lot or part of the lot. So that probably more affects your commercial or retail schemes. Additional plumbing. So if you're adding bathrooms, en suites, laundries, or relocating kitchen or plumbing waste lines, you may need council consent. So we have from time to time had apartments or lot owners, I should say, sorry, where they're applying to add, an ensuite into their apartment or something and run external plumbing outside of the building. That may need a DA to be submitted. External services and equipment, so installing external air conditioning units, vents, flues, or other equipment on common property or external walls may need a DA. Also, roof works, so altering the roof structure, fences or screen changes, again, because they change the outward appearance of the building, changing the colour or design of a building or lot. So that is both ways. That's for a individual lot owner and for the owners corporation. If they're changing the colour of the building or one of the lots, they certainly would need council approval. So if your building is white and you want to change it to, a completely different colour, blue, purple, don't laugh. I've had schemes that changed the colour from, the oddest one I think I had was off-white to royal blue. Interesting colour choice. Required a DA with Sutherland Shire Council in that particular instance. And obviously then the owners corporation could go ahead and repaint the building after they sought that approval. So obviously I have to say it depends on your council, depends on what they would consider requiring a DA. So it's worth a phone call if you're considering those sorts of renovations, just to see what the rules are in your particular council. All right, when approval is not sought, what happens? So this can be a little bit of fun. If a lot owner starts non-cosmetic work affecting common property without approval, the works are treated as unauthorised and may be considered damage to common property. And there's generally bylaws against causing damage to common property. So what happens? Next point here, the Owners Corporation may take action through NCAT. So NCAT is the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal. The Owners Corporation may seek an order that the works basically stop and that the damage to common property or the changes obviously the common property be reinstated or recover the rectification costs in doing so. Now, you can also seek urgent interim orders, which may be sought to stop unauthorised works while the dispute is being dealt with. So this often happens where, someone comes home and they see, workers there and they're, knocking out a wall or they're changing floors and, potentially the committee are unaware of those works. Strata manager might not even know. Those sorts of things are best raised with your strata manager, and obviously we can go through and see if any approval was given and seek an interim order if necessary. The Owners Corporation may also involve the council, but handle this a little carefully because it could trigger broader compliance issues for the scheme, such as fire safety upgrades and those sorts of things. So if you do yell out to the council, they may come out and have a look. They might find other issues at the building, and then obviously the Owners Corporation may have cause to deal with those. Now, when to engage Office of Air Trading or NCAT? So generally speaking, we treat these sorts of incidences as bylaw breaches essentially, because if they're damaging common property or they're unauthorised to change common property, it could potentially be a breach of the bylaws. And we may either go to mediation or issue bylaw breach notices with, generally speaking, with photographic evidence. If they've changed common property, it's pretty easy to snap off a photo and obviously include that in a letter to them. And there is obviously a way in which we can go to obviously seek an order that they repair common property or look to have them, fined or issued a penalty, I think is the correct terminology. All right, before I move on to bylaws, I see that there is a number of questions there, and I'll try and just have a quick little look through them and see what I can approve. Sorry, what I can answer, not approving renovations on the spot. Let me just have a look here. All right, we've got a question here. Do we need approval for replacing carpet with floating floor? Yes, you do. It's considered a minor renovation. You would need to submit an application form specifying the type of underlay and flooring that you wish to put in, where it's being located, and typically a strata committee may be able to approve that if there is a bylaw allowing the strata committee to approve minor renovations. So hopefully I've helped you there, Anna. Next one, we've got, may we have the slides after the webinar? Certainly, not a problem at all. I'll go one step better. I'll give you the recording of the webinar. Next one here. If we need to change the toilet basin, fall under minor or major. Toilet replacement with a toilet is generally a minor renovation. But typically, if it's just a maintenance item, for example, if it's broken and you're not, changing the way the plumbing is in the slab, generally it's something you can go ahead without too much of a fuss. All right, let me just have a look if there's any other ones that. All right, another good question here. So, Brad, does installation also cover replacement, say in the case of aircon? Aircon's an interesting one. So, if you do have air conditioning and it has, for example, run its usual course, it might be 10 years old and time to chuck it in the bin. If you are replacing like for like, generally you do not need approval. So, if you have a condenser on your balcony and you're replacing it with a new one in the same spot and you're running new cabling through the wall in the same spot. Generally speaking, you do not need additional approval. Additional approval is ordinarily sought where you're relocating that condenser. So you might want to put it on common property or lift it high in the air so you have more balcony space. Or, for example, if you're having to drill another hole in the wall or penetration to run additional electrical cabling or ducting, then yes, that might need approval under a minor renovation. But like for like, generally you're just repairing lot property. All right, let's have another look here. So we have another one. Can the Strata Committee ask to have work that has changed the external appearance of the building that has not had permission to be removed? Yes, so my last couple of slides around going to NCAT. If it has not been approved, it certainly could be an order application with NCAT. Next question, any idea when the acoustic rating stars came in? Just trying to gauge if this applied to older buildings. I'm not too sure of that one. It has definitely been around for quite a long time. I'm a bit of a Strata nerd. I've been in Strata close to 20 years, and I think it's been, yeah, testing my memory there. I think certainly it has been there for a good period of time. I'd say probably close to my tenure in Strata, which is 20 years. So I think it would apply to most schemes, and certainly if there is a change of flooring now, yeah, they do have to submit their underlay specifications and specify what star rating it is. Let me have a look. All right, let me have a look here. Replacing gas stove with electric stove, does it need approval? Look, if you're changing wiring or gas or electrical cabling in the wall, I would say yes, you would under minor renovations. Yep, I would say that would be classified as a minor renovation. Let me have a look here. All right, what else can we answer? All right, we've got here changing kitchen cabinets and worktops. Workbenches, are they cosmetic? That would fall under minor renovations, changing the kitchen cabinets. And it would be a major renovation if they're knocking out walls or they're affecting waterproofing or relocating a common wall or something like that. All right, interesting question here. Is cat netting considered minor or major? I would say that would be a case for your bylaws in terms of what the process is for a change to the outward appearance of the building. I would say it would at least be a minor renovation because it's potentially changing the outward appearance of the building. But generally, it's just something that is potentially screwed into the balcony. I'd take that one on notice, but I would say it is at least a minor renovation. All right, another one here. What about things like shower screens that don't impact the tiles or waterproofing? Again, that would just be a minor renovation if it's not affecting the waterproofing of the tiling. Yep. All right, I will continue on and I'll try and get to a few more questions as we go through the webinar. There'll be a couple more breaks for questions. Moving on to renovation and works bylaws. So firstly, what is a bylaw? A bylaw in its simplest form is a rule that applies to a strata scheme. So for renovations, a bylaw is often used to do several things. Firstly, approve specific works affecting the common property. Also describe exactly what work is allowed. Set conditions for how the work must be carried out. Also make the lot owner responsible for repair, maintenance, and replacement of affected common property. Next one here, require insurance licenses or engineer reports or other safeguards. So generally for major renovations, we obviously want to specify certain requirements around the engineering reports and inspections and so forth. And finally, give the owner special rights to use or alter part of the common property where needed. So I'm going to give you a few different examples of bylaws that will come up on the screen. So this is an example of a minor renovation bylaw. So what I want to point out here is specifically the bottom part. So part two, and I'll read this bit to you. It says, in addition to its powers under the Strata Schemes Management Act, the Strata Committee shall have the power to exercise the delegated functions. Well, what does that mean? It basically, in Section 110 of the Strata Schemes Management Act, outlines what a minor renovation is and basically empowers the committee if a bylaw is in place to review and approve minor renovation applications. So if your strata scheme has passed a bylaw like that, simple renovations like the changes of flooring or changes to kitchen cabinets not affecting common property may be signed off or approved by the strata committee. Now, typically what we do is we request a minor renovation application form be submitted. Now, we do have a section on our website that applicants can click on, fill out the minor renovations applications, drop and drag any additional supporting information. Like, for example, the change of flooring will require the underlay certificates and the product specifications, so they can put that into the application. We would then assess it, call the owner if needed, and just say, hey, you might have missed a section here or there, and then we would generally submit that to the strata committee for their approval. So you can see here pretty straightforward details. So the applicant details, their strata plan, lot number, their proposed minor renovation. So what is it that they want to do? Is it a kitchen renovation? Is it a wall reconfiguration, hard flooring, or they're moving LED lights or adding additional lights into the ceiling? And also we ask them to detail the required information under Section 110.4, which is the details of the work, proposed start date, days and times of the work, who are the contractors doing the work, ask for their qualifications and their license details, and any rubbish or debris removal arrangements. So for example, someone's ripping out their flooring, we want to make sure that they're taking it away with them. They're not just going to chuck it in the bin room and make it the cleaner's problem. We generally get the owner acknowledgement, and we then have an approval section of which we would obviously complete once we've got the relative approvals from the strata committee. So the application form, must include the work details, any plans, the dates and the duration of the times of the works, the people carrying out the works, and what they're going to do with the rubbish. So not usually covered by Section 110 are structural changes, changes to the external appearance, waterproofing work, or work needing other statutory approval. That would fall under major works and therefore require generally a special resolution. Which is my next slide, major works bylaw. So this is a very basic version. It's just for illustration purposes only. So typically what a major renovations bylaw would cover is what the lot owner is authorised to carry out. So it might be, bathroom works or waterproofing works or additional plumbing or floor or wall tiling changes, the conditions of approval. So we would generally detail that. What happens in the event of any damage or repair? We would have a clause around the maintenance responsibility, any indemnity clauses that should be applied, access details, and obviously the binding effect of the bylaw. Additionally here, bathroom renovation bylaw. So this is just a little extract from a bathroom bylaw that is in a number of our strata schemes. And I'll just read this little section to you. So it's part of a larger bathroom renovation bylaw, but I think this little clause just basically hits the nail on the head. So it says new works, except for the excluded works and subject to general specifications, the following works are permitted if they had not been done at the time of making of this bylaw. So bathroom renovation, so the replacement or installation of new tiles, floors or wall surfaces, painting and refinishing the surfaces, electrical wiring, and the plumbing and drainage work within the airspace of the authorised lot. So generally bathroom bylaws authorized bathroom renovations, and ordinarily they're very specific. You would detail the lot number, you would detail the specifications, the plans, the contractor details, the insurance, etc. And obviously, the works must be done properly by licensed contractors with minimal disruption to the other owners and occupants within the site. And the owner is generally responsible for maintenance, repairs, damage, and future replacement of the work. So, again, like I detailed earlier, you would need that clause to say that the owner is responsible for maintaining, the future repair and maintenance items within that bathroom renovation. If the bylaw is silent, those obligations fall back to the lot owner. Sorry, the owner's corporation. So you need that specific clause there. The owner's corporation can recover costs if the owner does not comply and includes a notice, form, and scope of works for bathroom renovations. And generally, they include the requirement for waterproofing certification to be provided. Another bylaw example, so this is a common one we see from time to time, modifications and additions. So this sort of bylaw you might see for schemes that might have penthouses that want to put pergolas on, or villa or townhouse schemes with backyards where they want to put pergolas, awnings, or shutters. Generally speaking, there are simple types of bylaws that just empower a lot owner to put an application in for those sorts of modifications. So pretty straightforward. Major works bylaw. So what owners corporations need to consider for major works bylaws. So there's sort of 9 elements I've come up with here. So the first one is the common property impact. So does the work affect common property and does it require a special resolution and a registered bylaw? So I think quite simply, if you get a bathroom application and they just want to change their vanity, I think you can say no to that. But if they want to rip up the tiles and the waterproofing, remove the bath, move all the plumbing around, then I think you tick that box and you say, yes, there is a common property impact, being the slab and the waterproofing, and potentially the services like plumbing, electrical, etc. And generally, you would need a major works bylaw in that case. Other consideration is the scope of works. It needs to be clear. What are they doing in their lot? If you are unclear, ask more questions, I think. So clearly define the works, the plans, the specifications, and any exclusions. Third point is the maintenance responsibility. So state who is responsible for future maintenance, repair, or replacement. So again, we'll steer away. I think we've talked enough about bathrooms. Let's say a pergola, for example. If you've got one of those pergolas on a penthouse balcony with the little button that you press that makes the louvers open and shut, obviously they're adding that to their lot and drilling into common property. They need a major works bylaw. You would have a maintenance responsibility clause passing the future maintenance to that lot owner so that the owner's corporation, if the motor burns out, the owner's corporation are not burdened with the expense of the repair or the replacement. It is up to the individual lot owner. Point number 4, approvals and compliance. So check approvals, licenses, insurances, warranties, and legal compliance. Point 5, risk and site management. So address damage, defects, waterproofing, rubbish, noise, and access. So if there are site-specific requirements that you want a lot owner to observe, during their renovations, obviously make sure that's detailed in the works bylaw. Protection for the scheme. So consider renovation bonds, inspection rights, and cost recovery clauses. So if they damage common property, do have a clause in the bylaw to recover the repairs. Future owners, make sure the bylaw binds future owners of the lot. I have seen some shockers in the past where it named the lot owner at the time and the maintenance responsibility in the bylaw was not conferred on future owners. And that was a drama, let me tell you. So just make sure that obviously that major works bylaws apply to any owner of that lot. So if they are to maintain something now, make sure it's obviously their maintenance responsibility in the future. Clarity and enforceability. So ensure that the bylaw is specific enough to register and enforce. So make sure it complies with the law. So often we advise to run off to a strata lawyer and get them to assist in drafting the bylaw. Makes sense. Structural and waterproofing certification. So consider whether structural changes require an engineer certificate and whether waterproofing certification is needed. We keep that on file. As I said, as a requirement to keep it on file for at least 10 years. So my little point with the light bulb there, a good major works bylaw should be clear, practical, and protect both the lot owner and the owner's corporation. All right, moving on here to other renovation and works considerations. So this is a quite a confusing topic to talk about, but I'll try and unpack it here. Is the DBP, which is the Design and Building Practitioners Act 2020 and Regulations 2021. So what owners corporations need to know. So the Design and Building Practitioners Act regulates building work in New South Wales to improve building quality and safety, and it applies to all building work, including renovations to certain buildings subject to exemptions. So does it apply to my renovations? So what we've got to think about here is the building class. So generally any residential scheme you're in, what the scope of works are, and any exceptions. So types of work in Strata, what approval is needed? So cosmetic work, usually no DBP Act requirements apply. Minor renovations sometimes, so works that affect building elements but are not complex or high risk. So it may require compliance with the DBP Act depending on the building class and scope. And major works, basically complex, high risk or structural works, it's likely that the Design and Building Practitioners Act will apply, and they may need to engage registered practitioners. So what does this mean? So basically under the DBP, if certain works fall into the Design and Building Practitioners Act, the person carrying out the works, if it's a lot owner or it's common property works and the owners corporation need to do it, typically they need declared designs to be prepared. They need to register those designs on a New South Wales planning portal website. And the builder that is doing the work or the contractor doing the work needs to be basically registered as a design and building practitioner under the legislation. So here we've got to check approval, so ensure the owner has identified if the works trigger the DBP Act and obtain any required approvals. Registered practitioners, so verify that registered design practitioners and principal contractors are engaged where required. For structural changes, ensure compliance certificate is provided, and for wetter areas, obviously waterproofing certification. There'll be insurance and warranties that would often apply. We have to have oversight over the documentation, obviously, from a communication point of view, set clear expectations with the owner about access, noise, disruption, and obligations. So if you're not sure, reach out to your strata manager. We can certainly look at the work being proposed and whether that may fall under the DBP Act and require additional certification by a design practitioner. All right, moving on. What is sustainability infrastructure? So effectively, if somebody is installing solar panels, so it might be a villa or a townhouse scheme, they're wanting to put solar panels on their roof and effectively save on their power, or potentially they might be wanting to install EV chargers. What are the rules? So a sustainability infrastructure bylaw would generally cover the installation of sustainability infrastructure. And it basically means a change to part of the common property, including the installation, removal, modification, or replacement for any one or more of the purposes in the below table under column A. So column A here, changes to common property which fall within sustainability infrastructure, is something that is trying to reduce the consumption of energy or water or increase the efficiency, reduce or prevent pollution, reduce the amount of waste sent to landfill, increase the recovery of recycled materials, reduce greenhouse gases, and so on and so forth. So before applying a sustainability infrastructure resolution, the owners corporation must consider those matters in table B. So that is the cost of the works, who will repair and maintain it ongoing, the extent to which the use of the sustainability infrastructure will be available to all or some of the lots, and any other matter prescribed by the regulations. So approving a sustainability infrastructure bylaw requires a special resolution, though at a lower threshold than ordinary special resolution. So this is the reason why I'm including this slide. And I'll give you a practical example. Let's say you're in a townhouse scheme, townhouse number 3 want to put solar panels on their roof. They submit an application. Ordinarily, any change to the roof, like for example a skylight, would require a special resolution bylaw be passed, which is 75% or more of the unit of entitlement votes voting at a meeting to vote in favour. However, if it is a sustainability measure like solar panels, it is a lower bar. So effectively, it's still a special resolution, so it's still calculated by way of unit of entitlement, but their threshold is greater than 50%. So it's slightly different to a ordinary special resolution. So examples of sustainability infrastructure, so energy efficiency, so solar panels, battery storage systems, LED lighting in foyers, motion sensors or timers, efficient pumps, lifts or ventilation systems. Underwater efficiency, it might be rainwater tanks, for examples. Under waste and recycling, it might be items that improve recycling stations or composting. And sustainability transport and emissions reduction, it might be electric vehicle charging stations, e-bike charging areas, and so on and so forth. So again, the reason why I raise it is it wouldn't be 75%. It's generally greater than a 50% of the unit of entitlement votes voting at the meeting in order to pass a sustainability infrastructure bylaw. So what it means is moving on to the next one, accessibility infrastructure, same sort of thing, the threshold for approval, so it's the same as sustainability. So for access, items such as, ramps for wheelchairs or, stair inclinators, for example, the approval threshold is the same as the sustainability threshold, so requires a special resolution. Less than 50% of the value of the votes cast can be against a resolution. All right, moving on. What if the owner's corporation unreasonably delays or refuses to make the renovation bylaw or provide approval? So this is a slide just to sort of give you a couple of points around what happens if the owner's corporation say no to, let's say, a bathroom renovation, a minor renovation or a major renovation. So approval for minor renovations. We'll start off with that. So approval for a minor reno is required from either the owner's corporation or the Strata committee. This approval may be subject to reasonable conditions, however, cannot be unreasonably withheld. So if an owner's corporation does unreasonably withhold approval, lot owners may apply to NCAT and seek an order that the renovation application be approved. Now, if the Strata Committee refuses to give approval for a minor renovation, it must give the reasons in writing to the lot owner within 3 months. If the reasons are not provided or the reasons are unreasonable, the lot owner may have standing to apply to NCAT for an order requiring the owner's corporation to consent to the proposed works. Now, for major works, approval for major works is required from the owner's corporation by special resolution, and in most cases, an accompanying renovation bylaw, as we've talked about at length tonight. If an owner's corporation has unreasonably refused major works or otherwise unreasonably refused to consent to the proposed terms of the bylaws, again, you guessed it, off to NCAT to seek an order. So the key points here, if reasons are required, they must be provided within 3 months of receiving the request for the renovation. If reasons are not provided or are unreasonable, the lot owner may have standing to apply to NCAT. NCAT can make orders requiring the owner's corporation to consent to proposed works, and all approvals must be subject to reasonable conditions. Moving on here, what renovation records should an owner's corporation keep? So this is pretty straightforward. So any application forms and approvals, so the form coming in and the approval going out to the lot owner, we would ordinarily keep on file. The second one, the plans, the contractors and the compliance, pretty straightforward. Any renovation plans, architectural drawings, engineering certificates, waterproofing certificates, contractor licenses, insurances, etc. We would keep that on file, as we would any development application form or CDC, construction certificate or so forth. Common property impacts, so what common property was altered, penetrated or connected to. Generally speaking, it's best practice to get before and after photos, and obviously photos of any damage if that is caused, and obviously you'll be seeking recovery of that, I'm sure. Warranties and product information, so certainly around the things like waterproofing in bathrooms. The lot owner might renovate a bathroom, sell their apartment. What happens in 5 years' time when the waterproofing leaks? Obviously, we go back through the records, pull out the certification, and obviously, if there's a warranty that applies, we would then look at assisting the lot owner in managing that. Responsibilities and correspondence. So it's good to keep records as to who maintains, repairs, and replaces the altered items, generally by way of a bylaw, as I've said. Who pays for future damage or defects? The owner committee and strata correspondence, we would keep that on file. And any refusals or reasons and any follow-up action, we will keep that. And we must keep the records for a minimum of 10 years. And any bylaws, so major works bylaws or whatnot, are permanently recorded on the scheme's certificate of title or records with land registry services, so we can refer to that at any time. Um, I'll really quickly touch on heritage site renovations. So a number of sites in our portfolio might have a heritage element. So that is potentially an older scheme that has a heritage listed lot or a component within the building, or potentially the whole building might be heritage listed. I won't go through each and every point, but generally speaking, we need to check the Heritage New South Wales Register to check what requirements are to be adhered to. So sometimes you can't replace things like the balustrading. You need to obviously seek that it's repaired or replace with something of a similar sort of design. Sometimes they can be quite difficult to obviously match something that's built in 1919, for example. So yeah, generally speaking, they require a little bit extra care. And generally speaking, those sites that are new developments with a heritage element, there might be bylaws or management statements telling you how you must obviously, repair and maintain that heritage item moving forward. And lastly here, before I just go to a couple more questions from the Zoom room, is what role does the Strata Committee play? So you've obviously heard lots of rules and different points here and there about minor and cosmetic and major renovations. What role do you play as a Strata Committee? Well, I guess the first one is we generally, as strata managers, come to you to review the renovation applications and check the scope of works. And generally speaking, strata committees are involved for the approval of minor renovations where the owners corporation has that delegated power. So there is that bylaw in place, again, pursuant to Section 110 of the strata legislation, that allows the strata committee to sign off on minor renovations. They also may assist in setting reasonable application conditions, including work hours. So we might liaise with you on the committee. Hey, what days of the week do you think is appropriate, etc. That we sort of try and negotiate with the applicant. Of course, you've got to be reasonable with that. They've got to have enough time to do the work, and obviously, councils generally specify the working hours that are appropriate, within that local government area. Also, committees may give written reasons if they're refusing a minor renovation, so we've got to sort of talk and think that one through. Monitors compliance with approval conditions. So obviously, the strata manager doesn't live at the building. That's what we rely on committees for. So if there's certain conditions for the approval of renovations, so for example, if there's going to be a skip bin in the loading bay, we might rely on the committee just to make sure that it is there and it's not, sitting on the council nature strip out the front of the building. They also may assist in managing complaints, damage reports, or access issues. Committees also might be involved in ensuring completion documents or certificates are provided, and generally help keep proper renovation records for future defects, insurance claims, sales and disputes, and those sorts of things. With all that, just consider that we're here to help you. Any renovation application, documentation, photos, specifications, we would generally keep on file and aim to do most, if not all, of the heavy lifting on behalf of the committee. So just moving to a couple of questions here before we close off. There's quite a few in the chat. I will try my best to answer as many as I can. If I cannot get through them, I will endeavour to do what I usually do and send out a Q&A document with the recording. All right, there's a couple here that I'll just work through. All right, Cindy has a question. Installing the fly screen, does that need approval? Generally speaking, bylaws generally allow for fly screens that don't affect the external appearance. So if you've just got like plain black mesh, for example, and you've got a black framed window, generally speaking, you put a fly screen, not a problem. You would need approval if it's going to have some sort of design. So if you've got some sort of crim safe looking fly screen, then generally that would be a minor renovation because it's affecting the outward appearance of the building. But straightforward fly screen mesh, generally you're okay to do that. Next question, if Strata Managers does not enforce the bylaws and tries to bypass the bylaws, what could we do? I think you certainly have the right as an owners corporation to enforce the bylaws yourself. So Strata committee members can assist in enforcing the bylaws or request that certain bylaws are enforced. So certainly for renovations, if somebody's renovating something and they weren't given consent, Strata committee can hold a meeting and make a decision to, pursue that. That's not an issue. Here's a good question. So, how do you go about getting outside of a strata complex repainted? Good question. So, a common property renovation. Effectively, the first step is generally a consensus of the owners that you want to enter into that project. So, you start off with a general meeting with a motion on the agenda requesting, quotations be sought. If that is supported by the majority of the owners at the meeting, then off we go. We can start the process getting quotations and then obviously specifications and those sorts of things detailed. Come back to a general meeting and then obviously, vote to go ahead with that project. Sometimes it involves raising additional funds, and obviously that would require a general meeting resolution. All right, what else have we got? Okay, good question. How does the future onus get passed to new owner via contract of sale? Potentially yes, but more importantly, the bylaws. So if a consent is given for a renovation within a lot, the bylaw must specify that the future obligation is passed on to any basically successor in title. So you just need to make sure your bylaws are airtight and consider passing that obligation on to future owners. All right, good question here. Who is responsible for the cost of getting a bylaw created? Okay, so if it is just a general bylaw that you pass for minor renovations, for example, that give the benefit of the Strata Committee approving minor renovations, I would say that would be an owner's corporation cost. However, if there is a lot owner that is wanting to do a bathroom renovation, generally speaking, you would pass that maintenance cost sorry, that bylaw cost onto the lot owner. We would generally get a quote or a proposal from a strata lawyer for that lot owner to consider it getting drafted, and they can place that on the next general meeting agenda. Ordinarily, though, if they can't wait to the next AGM or general meeting, some lot owners do adopt to pay the meeting costs so that a meeting can be obviously carried out and consent given. All right. I've got a good one here. Thank you. Every owner needs to see this. Can it be sent out? Well, thank you for the compliment and certainly will. And it'll be placed, this recording of this webinar will be placed on our learning portal as well. Another question here, is there a cost for a bylaw? Yes, there is. So lawyers draft bylaws generally. Generally speaking, there is also registration costs. So LRS, which is Land Registry Services, charge a fee to register a bylaw. And there is also a lodging agent, which is an agent called PEXA or Simply, which are online portals to which you can register bylaws. They also charge a fee. So there are some costs associated with that. Generally best to ask your strata manager to disclose those or get quotes for you, and we can do that. All right, here's another good one. Windows and sliding door tint using tinted film. Is this a minor? Yes, I would say it's a minor renovation. Yeah, it's generally a specific bylaw that you would pass. So some schemes do adopt tinting bylaws or window film bylaws. So I have managed in the past some high rises that get a lot of sun and potentially, they want the light in, but they don't want the heat, and they want some sort of reflective tint. Generally, as an owner's corporation, it's in your best interest to specify the type of tint or maybe the shading or the color so that you don't have, patchwork quilt on the outside of your building. So yes, generally speaking, you would have a bylaw that would regulate that. All right, any other questions that I can get? Sorry. All right, another good one. Regrouting the bathroom and replacing the shower screen. Is it considered minor or major? I would say it would, yeah, definitely fall under the minor category. If the shower screen is not affecting common property, though, you could basically just do that, yeah, pretty simply under a minor renovation. It wouldn't be too much of an issue. Next question here. Okay, do I need approval to add an artificial plant flexible trellis onto the inside of balcony railing? I would say, depending if it's going to be permanently affixed, if you're going to be drilling it into a common property railing, generally it would be a minor renovation. If it's decorative, you've got to think about the effect of the outward appearance of the building. Have a look at your bylaws, whether you're allowed to do that and run that obviously past the Strata committee. Um, all right, next question here, is changing windows for better sound blocking considered major? No, it would generally be considered a minor renovation to add additional glazing. You would generally specify that the appearance of the frame and the glazing is consistent with the um, other windows and whatnot that were previously there. And that's probably about all I can get through this evening. There's a lot of longer questions that I might try and reply to following the session in a Q&A document. But thank you so much for your attendance tonight. Just a little plug for our NetStrata mobile app. If you don't already have it, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen, download the app. You can see all sorts of things on the app, like things like your financials, building documents. You can report issues around your building or noise complaints, bylaw breaches, those sorts of things. And again, thank you so much for your attendance. Really appreciate it. And I will be issuing the recording. And as I said, I'll endeavour to get a Q&A document going with all the remaining questions that I was unable to answer. Thank you again. Have a good night and all the best. Thank you.